Maverick physical therapist slash Homo sapiens. Back to a little thoracic spine matrix, a little episode 3, in which we're going to be presetting a little frontal plane, that side to side plane motion with, in sequence I should say, in Troupling like format with our type 2 in sync and out of sync matrix. So we usually go with an open spacing ways, a nice dowel that's a little bit taller, typically one that's a little bit taller than you, unless the individual can kind of sink down a little bit, and or a hand on a wall, a fence, or a tree, which we have, but this is a little easier to view, and it's I may be a little bit too elusive for you if I start to just right now playing the trees, camouflage in really quickly. I would lose my concentration, lose my mind. You'd probably lose yours, and who knows what would happen after that. We'd probably be playing with Legos. So, which is awesome, by the way. So let's go ahead with our frontal plane. And when we mean frontal plane, so in the evaluation process, as we're looking at this for the thoracic spine, these type 2 and these type 1 motions with flexion and extension, kind of this Troupling, finding where the body is successful and not as successful, where we're getting our asterisk sign of reproduction of our symptoms, where we're getting our asymmetrical kind of motions per se. I love to throw into the equation as well, just kind of presetting some frontal points, some side to side stuff, and then driving with the transverse plane. I just, out of habit, I usually just start with presetting the transverse plane and going after the frontal plane with the driver, and then I'll usually kind of secondarily, I guess, just out of habit and just clinically what I've seen. Sometimes it, more often than not, it kind of turns out that way, but then again, that's where we need to be really careful in that, hey, we shouldn't have a pre-formulated kind of biased opinion, but if we can go after hitting a home run rather than knocking, kind of bunting guys over and hitting little singles and little bloopers, and go right after the gaps and go after putting the ball 50 rows in the seat quicker, I'm all about that. So let's put the left leg forward and the right leg back. Let's preset with this frontal plane motion. When I say preset, I'm preset with some left side bend. I'm preset with the left side bend. Both feet are pointed forward. Right heel can be off the ground, and I will use the left arm to rotate, swing out. I will also kind of use the nose as a driver too, to kind of help finish taking the trunk to the left. If I was going after a little more C-spine specific related stuff, I would not. That would be a different story, and that's for another day and another video. And I will compare that to the opposite side right here. As I preset the frontal plane, kind of the right side bend, my right arm will rotate to the right to give me my out of sync type 2 rotation side bend in the same direction. And the anglage at which we do that now can kind of change as well. So if I stand up and if I'm a little bit higher, I could add my rotation, but I could go a shoulder to starting to formulate this overhead kind of rotation right here to get a little more extension in the picture. If I wanted to kind of side bend, start my side bend a little bit lower, and then drive my rotation lower, or start here and rotate with my arm lower, such as kind of waist to knee high, I'm going after and Troupling a little more flexion. We're going to go in sync. Little type 2 in sync. Right upper extremity is going to side bend and preset with our side bend left, so that we can rotate left with our left upper extremity. And so I'll often, a lot of times, like making a little chicken wing with this arm, use the nose as a driver. And again, we can go up and go a little bit higher. So I'm getting my type 2 in sync rotation and side bend to the left, but I can get a little extension, a little more extension there. I can drop my arm a little bit, which will drop my trunk for my rotation to give me a little more flexion that's troubled. With my right foot forward and left leg back, excuse me, with our in sync with our left leg forward and our right leg back, and kind of the preset kind of frontal plane motion here again on the for a right kind of rotation and side bend type 2 in sync. We're just kind of taking that right upper extremity, we're rotating it right. We can rotate it a little bit higher, and we can move this over a little bit too, give us a little bit more of a side bend. So a lot of variables that we can kind of tweak a little bit, and then we can drop a little bit lower if I wanted to for a little more flexion, just to see how the body responds. So there is little episode 3, a little preset of the frontal plane, Troupling for the thoracic spine matrix that will enable us to kind of further investigate the process overall, even though we're jamming through time-wise, doing more talking. But this is something that in a good 5-minute period in the clinic, 8-minute at most, you can jam through all of this little Troupling matrix, those little boxes, and take a look at things. 5 minutes at most, you're in and out. Find where they're successful, find where they're not. Write down and formulate kind of what that success is. Kind of go after that and feed into that so that it will branch on out. So just like a tree, we've got roots that will spread and disperse way on out. It'll go where it can for water. We're the water in kind of a desperate situation that's providing hope for an individual, for a human that wants to function better, that wants to move better, that wants to further their genetic potential. It's our job to hunt that down. Every opportunity we have, every treatment session gives us an opportunity to reassess that individual in which they could potentially be moving differently than what they did before. We need to adapt to that and be able to make a change. Play with those. A little frontal plane preset for our type 2 in sync and out of sync. Episode 4, presetting the frontal plane for our type 1 in sync and out of sync, coming up next.